Thanks. Welcome. So this event about community-based adaptation is organized by a group of Luxembourg-based NGOs and their network called Circle. And as I said, it's about community-based adaptation. My name is John Norbo. I will moderate this session, and I will also present a report about adaptation finance. The report has a number of estimates of future adaptation finance. So when it comes to community-based adaptation, you will hear about agroecology and microfinance, empowerment of women, and how that can all help build climate resilient communities. And you will hear about the experiences of NGOs of how to anchor adaptation action in the local communities. So the reason why you can do that is that the Luxembourgish government has had a program to support NGOs working on community-based adaptation, and they've actually had that program for quite some years, since 2020. And like 60 different projects has received funding from this program so far. And in today's meeting, you will hear about the experiences from a number of these projects. So the program, it basically has two components. There will be a set of presentations, and then after that there will be a panel discussion, and there will be opportunities for you also to ask questions. So the first presentation we have here is by Mr. Jimmy Skenderovic, and Jimmy is Senior Advisor to the Government of Luxembourg, and he will introduce the ideas, and the program as such is the program for community-based adaptations. Please come to the podium, Jimmy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. And first of all, let me thank you to the organizers for this. I was advised to be close to the mic. I don't know if it's okay when I'm, okay. So let me thank you first of all to organizers for the invitation to our ministry. I'm very happy to be part of this event here and to be able to present some remarks for today's event. NGOs are one of the main partners among all the other players in the joint fight against climate change. They help governments to implement high-quality projects and to channel the funds committed to the beneficiary countries, focusing on the most vulnerable. Since 2010, Luxembourg is providing financial support for climate mitigation and adaptation action in developing countries, additionally to its official ODA. A first commitment of 9 million was taken under the Fast Start finance track decided at the COP15 in 2009. Afterwards, in the run-up to the 2015 Paris COP, Luxembourg committed 120 million euros until the end of 2020. This funding, known as Luxembourg's International Climate Finance, has been replenished for the period 2021-2025 up to 220 million. So you see also, comparing to the size of the country and their population, the funding that we're giving to ODA and to specific to international climate finance is quite significant. We are one of the most, maybe the first country in the per capita international climate finance. Over the past years, my ministry has developed a diverse portfolio of climate projects and programs implemented by a large and diverse numbers of partners in various regions in the Global South. Today, our ICF program is being conducted through multilateral channels, institutions, be it like Green Climate Fund or other UN bodies and institutions, bilateral country agreements, and of course by national NGOs. The ICF interventions focus on thematic areas like community-based adaptation, natural capital and land use, resource efficiency, clean air, water management, and private sector financing. I strongly believe that it takes a multitude of players who bring in their own specific expertise and experience to push for change at different levels. One of these levels, a quite central one, is the local level, where communities play a major role. This is where the tremendously important work by NGOs is coming in. Luxembourg's first ICF strategy foresees a specific NGO grant scheme, which consists in simplified application procedure for national NGOs to access climate funding. Back in 2017, an envelope of 12 million euros was earmarked for NGOs projects until the end of 2020. The strategy has been updated in 2021, under which the NGOs' commitment has been increased to 5 million per year for the period 2025, or a total of 25 million euros. And I have to say also that this is to highlight that this is additionally to the official ODA money that is provided by our ministries from the foreign affairs. So our ODA is around €500 million per year, and we are very happy to say that our NGOs are dispersing 15%, almost 50%, or around 50% of the ODA to the beneficiary countries. So 15% of ODAs is dispersed by NGOs. We all know about the crucial role that local communities and indigenous peoples, particularly grassroots women's organizations, play in deploying solutions often based on natural resources when facing the challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, and declining living conditions. We also know that only a small part of adaptation finance is actually reaching the people on the ground, those who need it most, like smallholder farmers. Therefore, it is of utmost importance that projects and programs are community-driven in a way that they are jointly designed with local communities and allow for their active participation in the implementation and decision-making processes. This is the reason why NGO-led projects are so crucial and why Luxembourg decided to earmark a part of its international climate finance for its NGO community. NGOs design projects that are in accordance with the direct needs and concerns of the local population, because they involve the local communities and make sure the funding reaches the most vulnerable in order to empower them and assist them to enhance their resilience to climate change. And also because NGOs are the ones working on the ground, and they know very well the local circumstances and challenges through their collaboration with local communities and organizations. We are very proud to announce that as of today, about 24 national NGOs are being supported through international ICF program. Those 24 NGOs are in charge for the implementation of approximately 17 projects in 23 countries and 2 regions. I strongly hope that Luxembourg NGO grant scheme will inspire other countries to go in the same direction and support their national NGOs in their fight for a more sustainable and equitable future in the Global South. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. And please take a seat here. You will be part of the panel. And there will be opportunities for you to ask questions to Jimmy afterwards. it's a bit hard to battle with the noise from the background, but I will nevertheless try. Is it better now? Sorry. Well, I will then continue with my presentation. I don't know if you got my name before, but my name is John Norbo. I work with CARE Denmark and CARE International, and I work on climate finance. So I will present a report we published in June, where we looked at the plans for future climate finance from all the donors in the wealthy countries. I think our report is very relevant for the discussions here at COP28, because the issue of adaptation finance is very important in the global stocktake. I don't know if you follow that, but if you do, then you will hear that developing countries again and again raise the issue of how to get to a doubling of adaptation finance. And we also have the negotiations on the global goal of adaptation, where developing countries, they ask for a close relation between the goal and the means of implementation. So adaptation finance is a key issue here, of course, alongside fossil fuel phase out and so on. But our report contains some numbers and estimates of the future, the possibilities of increasing adaptation finance in the future. So before I dig into the report, I just want to remind of all of I just want to remind of all of what we have in the Paris Agreement, what was agreed. This is Article 9.4. It says that the provision of scale-up financial resources should aim to achieve a balance between adaptation and mitigation, taking into account the priorities and needs of developing country parties. It's very important to notice that the article clearly states that there should be a balance between finance for adaptation and mitigation. And also, it also places the priorities and needs of developing countries at the heart. It also goes on and says that especially those that are particularly vulnerable, such as the least developed countries and small island development states, considering the need for public and grant-based resources for adaptation. So there should be a focus on least developed countries and small island development states, and finance for adaptation should be mainly public and grant-based. I think that's very important to keep in mind. So, if you look at the numbers, these are the numbers that came out from the OECD like 3 weeks ago, and they are similar to the numbers from the adaptation gap report published from UNEP also a month ago. The dark green is the proportion of climate finance that goes to adaptation, whereas the sort of less dark green is mitigation finance. So mitigation finance, adaptation finance from 2016 to 2021. What the numbers tell us is that in 2021, less than half, or that mitigation finance is more than double as high as adaptation finance. Actually, the numbers also show that there was a drop in adaptation finance by around 15% from 2020 to 2021. And if you look across the years, you will clearly see that there's no balance when it comes to adaptation and mitigation finance. So when we had COP26 2 years ago, the numbers until 2019 was known. And if you look at those numbers, it's really clear that this balance is not there. And therefore, also developing countries, they were very firm in the run-up to COP26 that we need to act on this. And they succeeded to get this recognized in the Glasgow Climate Pact. It says that the parties urges that developed country parties to at least double their collective provision of climate finance for adaptation to developing countries parties from 2019 levels by 2025. So there is a clear commitment to reach a doubling of adaptation finance by 2025. And as I said at the beginning, we looked into this when we made a report earlier this year. In the report, we analyzed the climate finance plans by all the wealthy countries. There are like 26 wealthy countries who have submitted climate finance plans to the UNFCCC, and they are supposed to do so every second year. We looked into all those plans, and we analyzed the plans on various criteria, including the possibility of balancing mitigation and adaptation finance. And I'll look into the findings of the report now. First, on this balance, we found out that only 10 countries have quantitative targets for adaptation finance. And some of these quantitative targets, they don't entail a balance between mitigation and adaptation finance. But we found that 6 countries, they really prioritize adaptation finance in order to redress and get into a sort of more balanced situation. They were Australia, Belgium, Denmark, Ireland, the Netherlands, and New Zealand. But then we looked to where does these commitments and these goals lead us? Oh. It's a bit slow, this one. So we took all the quantitative targets from the countries, and we said, okay, we expect the developed countries to fully live up to their targets. And then we also make an estimate from those countries that don't have a quantitative target on adaptation finance, but perhaps have an overall quantitative target for their climate finance. And we included the assumption that they would meet their target and that they would keep their adaptation finance at least the level as it is right now. So we made this estimation of how will we go if the wealthy countries, they live up to their current goals on climate finance, including the goals on adaptation finance. And if you combined all those, the numbers from all the countries, then you reach a number of US $18.1 billion. And you have to compare that number with the goal of doubling adaptation finance. The goal was based on 2019 as a baseline, which means that by 2025, total adaptation finance should reach at least $40 billion. So there's quite a distance from this goal we have now, or the estimate here, to the $40 billion target. And it means that there is no plan from developed countries right now to reach the doubling of adaptation finance. So when you look at the numbers on adaptation finance from the OECD, then you'll also see that that the countries, just a moment. So if you look into the numbers of on adaptation finance from the OECD, then you will see that a proportion of those numbers, it's covered by finance from the MDBs. It's about $10 to $11 billion. And if you add that to the 18.1 billion, then you'll see that, I mean, we are still very far from the $40 billion required for doubling. And a balance of adaptation finance is clearly not in sight. So I'll skip that one and go to one of the other criteria we used in our analysis of the plans of climate finance from the rich countries, namely the additionality of climate finance. And what you see in the plans is that only 3 countries, namely Sweden, Norway, and Luxembourg, clearly state in their adaptation finance plans that climate finance comes on top of ODA, and they will meet their 0.7, their commitment under the UN to provide 0.7% of their GNI as ODA. So we also scored the different climate finance plans from the wealthy countries on different criteria. And they were scored on 5 criteria, and they could get a maximum of 4 points for each of these criteria. And I just wanted to show you that when we did that, I mean, the maximum score is 20, and the country reaching the top of our list is actually Luxembourg. That was the same situation like 2 years ago, but at that time you were the only country at the top. Now New Zealand has actually joined you, and there's actually some room for improvement. There's more points to get if you want to get the total possible number. So, yeah, please look into the report, and you'll find out how to improve the report and become a shining example for the rest of the countries. Anyway, our report is available at careclimatechange.org/advocacy. And we also have a number of other reports that might be of interest to you. In September, we published a report called Seeing Double, which goes into detail with the additionality of climate finance from all the wealthy countries. And some time ago, we also published a report called Adaptation Finance, Fact or Fiction, that looked into the issue is what the countries report as adaptation finance, does it actually go to adaptation activities? So that was the end of my presentation. And now we will continue with another presentation. The presentation is from Laura Foskey. Please come. And Laura is the Executive Director of ADA Luxembourg. Laura has 25 years of experience in inclusive and sustainable finance. She has been the General Director of a microfinance investment vehicle, and she has helped build capacity on microfinance in Latin America, Africa, and the Balkans.
You tell me.
Please speak.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the for the presentation. Thank you for also to organizer. Yes, as you can heard, Luxembourg is on the top of those organizations. It's good now, and is on the top of the governments that provide funding for climate adaptation, and also that use NGOs in order to provide this adaptation funding. So I will present quite briefly. I'm Italian, so I can speak a lot, so please tell me if it is too much. I would like to start with the concept of financial inclusion. And I would like to ask to the audience, who is familiar with financial inclusion concept? Can you raise your hand? Who is familiar with financial inclusion? 1, 2, is 3? Okay, not the majority. So let me just tell you that financial inclusion is really, as being quoted by the CGAP. The CGAP is the consultative group against the poverty that is a sector of the World Bank dedicated to financial inclusion. And CGAP published last week, so recently, a publication on the role of financial inclusion for climate adaptation. And I quote, financial inclusion should be a cornerstone on climate adaptation. Because financial inclusion services that you can see on the left side of the slide can really play an important role in building resilience of low-income people, people that are most vulnerable, that are the ones that contribute the less in the carbon emission, but that are the ones that suffer the most of climate change, extreme events. And this slide just show how all those services, we talk about savings, credit, insurance, but also payments and remittances, can play an important role in the long-term climate adaptation. And particularly when we talk about the risk prevention and the possibility to respond to the risk of some events, extreme events and disasters that can happen. To give you some example, savings as both informal and informal mechanism is the most flexible instrument for poor people to reduce the risk, to prevent the risk. People, farmers, smallholder farmers can save in order to be able to buy inputs that are more resistant to the climate change effects. But also savings are the most important tool when the disaster, when the climate extreme event happen, because they can be used as a form of recovery to cope with this situation. Avoiding to use to sell their assets, for example, or avoiding to reduce their funding to send children to the school or buy food, for example. There is not the only one. Saving is not the only one tool. There are credit. Credit is for the long-term investments to buy equipment that are important for the agricultural sector that can be used for the change, the transition to an ecological, agroecological initiative. Insurance is as well a de-risking factor that can reduce the risk of the loan, for example, can reduce the risk of the farmer, can reduce several risks, but is really low developed in developing countries. 1% only of the African people have access to an insurance product. So there is a strong gap to develop insurance product that can be so important in the resilience of the low-income people. And finally, payments play a very crucial role, particularly when they can be the channel for governments when a disaster, when an extreme event happens, and they can be channeled to reach low-income people through, for example, financial service provider in the financial inclusion sector that otherwise they will not have access to any other tools rather than cash distributed in the field. ADA is an organization. I'm not sure it's working. If it can. Okay. This just to give you an example of our organization. ADA is an organization that is based in Luxembourg, but we develop several initiatives in financial inclusion, and we have been developing financial inclusion projects for almost 30 years. Next year will be our 30th anniversary, together in collaboration with the Luxembourgish government. And just to give you an idea in which sector we are going to develop our climate projects, for housing, for example, housing loans, for water and sanitation loans, for climate smart agriculture, we have big and important set of projects on this thematic. For renewable energy and the way in which renewable energy is used, for example, for agricultural sector, for water pumps, for example, or drop irrigation. And even for develop initiative with InsurTech in the agri-index insurance. Particularly in the Philippines, I want to just, is the next slide? You can scroll, you can go. This, yeah. Just to give you an idea on how we develop this financial inclusion initiative, IGF is for inclusive green finance products. And we selected in the Philippines 2 microfinance organizations. And we started with them and we assess the client's climate vulnerability and needs. Then we define some training initiatives in order to improve their capacity to offer those products. And we select a few number of local clients that wanted to be part of these initiatives. Here you see a local producer of tomatoes and a fisherman that use clean energy, for example, for the fishermen in order to lighten the fisher tanks. And so we piloting with them, and then we scaled up with other microfinance institutions and clients. Just to tell you how small can be a pilot, because you see 8 clients is very small, but this is crucial to understand the need and to adapt the product to the needs of the client. And finally, we'll scale up and we disseminate, defining the product in its detail and testing and learning from this initiative. The last slide is just to present our way to scale up in Asian countries. We will start with the analysis of the vulnerable communities in 5 countries. It will be Cambodia, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Laos. And in those countries, we replicate a little bit the methodology, working with the vulnerable communities, defining their capacity building needs, the equipment inputs that they would acquire, and the access to market that can be so important in some cases. And we will work in supporting local financial institutions, banks, or non-banking financial service providers in order to develop their capacity to reach those kind of clients with specific green financial, inclusive financial products. And we will try to channel fund managers and private and public funds in order to reach those vulnerable communities. I think that my 10 minutes arrived. So thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And now we have Chandra Sekhar Reddy. You're the founder and CEO of APMAS. APMAS is running projects promoting climate-resilient agriculture practices by adopting innovative mitigation and adaptation practices.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think, there is a competition. How loud can you be to deal with the session going on next door? So I'm delighted to be here and speaking about our experience. Particularly, we work with the AEIN Luxembourg, which is our partner in the climate smart agriculture. And we work in the southern part of India, which is closer to Bangalore, if any of you know the Indian topography. And this is a very innovative initiative that we have been doing now for 4 years. We have another 3 years. How do we do community-based climate smart agriculture, climate resilient communities? How can we develop? So I'll just share a few ideas. And as an NGO based in India, we've been doing this work for 22 years now. We currently work with around 100,000 farmers and around 200,000 women. Financial inclusion, inclusive finance. Yeah, the next slide. Or do I move it? Okay. In terms of the climate smart villages, we have these 5 major interventions that we have been tweaking and doing some course correction over the past 4 years. One is climate resilient agriculture. Again, in all these aspects, the core element is community-driven approaches. It is led by the community through self-help groups, through farmer-producer organizations. So there is crop diversification is most important. And you all know that food security has been at risk. And so we are focusing on how do we promote crop diversification for food security, nutritional security, cultivation of millets, which are more resistant for any drought kind of situation. In the geographic areas that we work, the rainfall is below 500 millimeters per annum. So that's the kind of, and it's very erratic kind of a rainfall. The second intervention, which is innovative, is promoting farmer-producer companies or collectives, which are more like cooperative organizations, and also the village climate risk management committees. So the idea is how can this be community-owned, community-driven, community-managed, community-led kind of an initiative. The other certain innovations related to community level adaptation is the Miyawaki plantation, biochar application, the biodynamic composting. So these are ways by which you move away from chemical agriculture to natural farming or organic farming, and that is something that the farmers, it's improving their health, it's improving their nutrition, and it's improving the nutritional security. The fourth is the knowledge management. I think we all talk about capacity building, and how do we build capacity of community-based organizations so that it all happens at the level of the village. There we conduct farmer field schools, field days, some kind of, community, using the kind of local knowledge, their understanding about conventional agriculture or what is called natural farming. And finally, I want to mention, we have our friend from the Luxembourg ministry, that we are thankful to the ministry because we are able to leverage the local government funds. So let us say if we are able to spend $100, we are able to leverage $200 from the state government or the national government. So in a way, your euro is going longer than you would imagine. I think that's something maybe we should start reporting in terms of how much the NGO projects leverage, particularly climate smart projects leverage. And also I want to mention that our focus is more on adaptation than mitigation, because we don't want poor and vulnerable families to take responsibility for mitigation. They focus more on adaptation so that their own livelihood security is enhanced. We also work with other NGOs in that area. I have a few pictures, I thought I'll kind of run through them. So the biodynamic composting or the living soil, how the communities prepare it themselves. And the green manure application to improve the carbon fixation into the soils. So this is again something that's widely now practiced. And whatever we demonstrate, we are also simultaneously working on scaling up. The bore wells that are there because of rainfall being very scarce. So the recharge of the bore well, whenever there is a rainfall, how the bore wells get recharged. These are community-based approaches. Protective irrigation, especially when you have a dry spell for 1 month or 6 weeks, you bring water so that you kind of save the crop and the farmers have the crop. And then crop diversification, so we are talking about millets, we are talking about groundnuts, we are talking about not monocropping but multi-cropping, and the whole symbiotic relationship between the crop and the animal husbandry. So that's something that we widely promote. Millet cultivation, again, it's also supposed to be very good for nutrition, so we promote widely. Now, the government of India and the state governments have also introduced millet as part of the public distribution system. So it is also provided in the schools in the midday meals program. Distribution of the plants. So again, focusing on forestation is something that we do. And the farmers plant these trees, mango and other varieties of fruit-bearing trees in their lands on the bunds. Wow. Farmer Field School, I mentioned, this is again a very participatory, community-based approach to identification of pests and diseases, and pest management is something that's done. Also the kind of natural concoctions that they are able to prepare. Both women and men work together in this work. We also, because in addition to agriculture, farmers also depend on livestock, milch animals. So we promote fodder varieties that are sustainable so that they have improved yield of milk from the cattle that they have. Wow. The training and capacity building, we do a lot of training workshops. The farmer producer organizations conduct their annual general body meetings, so it's very participatory kind of a process. Biodynamic composting or preparing of the organic manure. So finally, this is, I think, my last slide. I just thought I'll summarize that what are the benefits of having this kind of northern NGOs work with the southern NGOs, and how climate finance helps. Number one, I think the NGOs that work with us, particularly the AEA in Luxembourg, we are able to pilot innovations that can be taken to scale. We also do training of government officials, training of other NGOs, so that's one important benefit. And this is through community-based organizations so that it's sustainable. Second, we have leveraged, as I mentioned, the state-level government funds that are meant for these kind of work. The third most important is training, capacity building, so that the communities have the capabilities beyond the life of the project, and the efforts become sustainable, that ensures food and nutritional security with the focus on adaptation. And then, based on the experience and learning, for example, in the state of Andhra Pradesh in India, we now have almost 500,000 farmers practicing natural farming. So we have become part of that movement, so that it's not just a small, we work only in 14 villages, but we are able to influence this larger system of, the Andhra Pradesh community-based natural farming system. And finally, building strong resilience and food security. How do we make sure that this entire process is bottom up and not top down? Because one problem with governments doing it is that it tends to be top down. But if NGOs are involved, then the communities are involved. It's a participatory process. Local knowledge and local understanding is used. As a result, we are able to see greater impact, and that is being scaled up. So with that, I think that's about it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Captain, thank you.
Thank you. And our last and final presenter is Runa Khan, and you are founding and executive director of Friendship. And you're also a member of the Club of Rome. Please come and give your presentation. Thanks.
We have a short film, and then I'll speak. It's going to be challenging with the noise next door, but I think this is all right, isn't it? So.
Bordering the Bay of Bengal, Bangladesh's pride, the world's largest mangrove forest. Yet cyclones, floods, lack of potable water, crisis after crisis, intensifying every year, are the daily companions of those who live around it. Sidr, Ayla, Amphan, Yash, cyclones hit, embankments break, salt water seeps in. Imagine losing all your cultivable land to saline water. Imagine having repeated miscarriages and then being taunted and ostracized for being unable to bear a child. Imagine going deeper into the forest to collect fish, fruits, and honey with fear of tigers or gangs of pirates. But people never lose hope. Determination drives them daily. Their resilience has been the fuel for Friendship's Blue Mangrove project. From collecting seeds to building up Bangladesh's largest private mangrove nursery and afforestation project, mitigating environmental hazards, bringing hope to communities. Combining indigenous knowledge, science, and community needs, the project will bring benefits of the Sundarbans close to the communities that need it most. The Sundarbans, the provider and protector, nurtured by the people to bring back security, opportunity, and hope.
So, thank you. And I have to say that this project would not have been possible without a kind of real deep trust with the from the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Biodiversity. We work so closely with the ministries in Luxembourg, different ministries, but this particular project was one which we started on faith that it was needed, with the faith that we could do it because the needs were so much on the ground, and the fact that, very honestly, there was no options. There was no options because the mangroves are the green belt of Bangladesh. You know, the green belt are the protection area which helps the cyclones the wrath of the cyclones hitting the population, helps the embankments not to break, salt water not to come in, lives not to get lost, livelihoods to be preserved, and of course we know the importance of mangroves in the mitigation world today. Going back to international funding, which has doubled to for adaptation, has doubled from 1.3 trillion, has doubled to 1.3 trillion, but international funding has tripled, has doubled to 1.3 trillion, but the adaptation, for it to go to adaptation, it has dropped from 7% to 5%. The need today is 1.2 billion. By 2025, they say that we will need 3.3 trillions. Bangladesh is 7th on the list of IPCC, being affected by climate, but highest number of people impacted vis-a-vis demography. 42% of the people today, 42 million people, which is about 40% of the people today, are being impacted by climate in some way or the other, leading to about 42 million migrants. Of course, it's also due to poverty, it's also due to other issues, but they're all, some way or the other, impacted by the climate. 67% of the budget of a family, poor family, goes on health, and 33 million people today are getting impacted by salination. Just to give you a little perspective of why adaptation solution at the field is so important, and especially through mangroves, monetary value which benefits the ecosystem services provided by one single mangrove tree is 194,000 USD. One single mangrove, 1 hectare of mangrove. And the world mangroves today, it's $2.7 trillion, the mangrove trees providing. So financially, mangroves are one of the best sources which gives back financial benefit if it is invested in mangroves. We started, Bangladesh is a country which is only 5 meters above the sea level. On average. And we were doing adaptation solutions, many from 21 years of health, education, agriculture, livelihood. All, of course, today in the morning I was saying that, locally led adaptation is natural for us because there seems to be no other way of finding a sustainable solution if it is not locally led. And locally led adaptation solutions for all these, however, we realized that if we cannot prevent part of the country from going under the water in the next 10 to 20 years, who are we trying to save? So mangroves became an emergency with us. What did we do? In a country where every inch of land is being fought for livelihood, for a farmer having a little plot of land like that would grow, yes, Laura, would grow vegetable gardening, for their family to have, for income. If you have a spread of land, you use it, even if it is temporarily, you can use it for one season, you would use it for livelihood. So scrambling for land like that, the dynamics of producing mangroves is totally different in Bangladesh than in the Amazon. The cost is totally different. In the Amazon forest, seeds wash in and mangroves can grow. Here, seeds wash in, immediately eaten up as soon as a little tree grows like that by the goats. Or the people take it out and they're replanting. So what did we do? We sat with the community and asked them and listened to them. We asked them, you are having this amount of money, you are using and generating this amount of funds from the field. All right. Would a mangrove plantation help you? The answer was always yes. You know why? They didn't need to think. It would help them because that field wouldn't exist tomorrow in the next coming season. So they would need this. And it would help them how? The mangroves would bring livelihood to their doorstep. And this was very important. It is not that we needed to really make them aware. They were aware. But they didn't know how to start because of the ecosystem, the political ecosystem also of the area, where any land which was left vacant was taken up by the local community leaders. So we needed to start from the ground, and we did. So 30 families today are taking care of 1 hectare, and we have about approximately between 150 to 200 hectares plus minus for mangroves. And the hectares look very impressive because the hectares are not together. The hectares are 2 hours by boat you can travel, and it's friendship mangrove forests which are preventing the land inside and the embankments inside from being impacted by the cyclones and the tidal waves. So it's narrow and long, and that is how it is to be, because we cannot compete with taking away livelihoods from people. We cannot compete with that. So this was the alternative, and impact has been incredible. Within 4 years, which was the first start of the first project, we discovered that, Bangladesh is very blessed, you plant a tree and within 4 years it grows. And yeah, within 4 years it grows. So within 4 years, these 30 families for 15 days, they can double their income of the month by just catching crabs, fish, etc., prawns, etc. And this is over the next few years, it will multiply because honeybees, etc., will come in. But the impact that we are seeing is tremendous, and we are still not looking into the byproducts of mangrove. For example, manufacturing of medicines. There are a lot of medicinal herbs, a lot of herbal industries. Honey, marketing of fish products, marketing of the thing. So not only because the local communities resell, they do not use everything they grow, they resell it. And that's how the income comes in. And areas where 4 or 5 years ago were growing nothing because saline water is not coming in, the whole landscape has changed from brown to green. And this within 4 years. It's unbelievable. And we find that the scalability of the solution is tremendous because protection, livelihood, life, and mitigation all happens in one package. And we are doing some work also with some Indian, trying to see if right from the Himalayas to the mangroves, we can really get an ecosystem going which works. We found that everywhere that these people were going, the voice they were hearing is, we need the mangroves. Successful example is possibly the best way of sustainability, understanding of the community, awareness, and for the projects to move ahead. Thank you.
Thanks to Runa for her fight for the mangroves and also for beating the noise from the background. It's actually quite disturbing, you should know. Anyway, let's start for the panel discussion, and please take your seats. Jimmy and Laura and Runa and BS. You can.
Well, as Karin mentioned,
That's okay. So we only have one mic, but we will manage anyway. And I have some pre-prepared questions for our panelists, and then there will be a chance for you also to ask questions. So I guess the first question is, in a way, mainly directed at Jimmy, but I suppose that you would also have an idea of or comments to it. But the first question is, what do you think is the added value of funding adaptation projects through civil society organizations? You mentioned it in your initial intervention, but maybe you want to expand on it and also explain a little more to us about why you think that your international climate finance strategy is so unique.
I think if it is unique, I don't know if there's, but you can confirm it. If is there not a country that is doing this in the world, but if it is unique, then I would say that the fact that it's additional to the ODA makes it unique, because we are doing something that is done by our colleagues, and we see it here in everywhere when we go outside, that we need to explain to other colleagues that they are doing the same projects, the same, they have they're contributing to the same organizations, but they're asking us, but what are you doing this, what is this difference? Why are you doing this? And first of all, you commit more money in total for climate and adaptation projects when you apply this system. So when you split the international climate finance from your ODA, so it definitely means that you have more in the pot to disperse. That's important fact. The other maybe reason why it may be different is that with the local NGOs, with NGOs that works with locals on the ground, it's, I think, the best proof is what Runa just explained, how the mangroves have with your project in Bangladesh, and that's the best proof why this specific window that we do, because you concentrate on this specific topic. You don't need to disperse all your money to. You don't look to have a balanced portfolio between this. All your efforts are spent on this specifically. That's why the results are more visible and more concrete. I think that is why it makes more different than unique.
So I think that we as NGOs, we indeed value that climate finance from Luxembourg is additional to other ODA. But I wonder if some of you in the panel want to sort of comment on this and to sort of maybe compare the Luxembourgish approach to other donors.
Having worked with so many ministries, different portfolios of the Luxembourg budget, I can tell you, we have a lot of donors all over the world, but I always say that the funds coming in from Luxembourg, the impact happens synergetically. It's a synergetic impact simply because you allow us without having your own mandates pushed in. And I think for adaptation solutions at the field level, because you do that, we do not try to make sexy projects. We try to make projects which are really workable. If something is not going exactly in the line we want to, we are allowed to tweak it a little bit so that impact can happen. And this sort of a funding is extremely difficult to do for an organization like ours, because we are not making money any other way. We are not making money through microfinancing or things like that. So for us, I think directly being able to reach local communities, understanding of the way the finance are being given to us, I think the results are incredible because it's based on that work, others come in. Based on the efficiency of the model, others come in. And so it can multiply, but without that base, it would never work as efficiently. Absolutely.
So I think, so the word is leverage. So, for example, the Luxembourg funding that we have through AEIN, we are able to also leverage, I mentioned, state government funds. We are also leverage the German donors. So I think that leverage gives that kind of a flexibility and to maximize impact. And the second is that because it's a community-based approach, we are able to upscale it, mainstream it. So I think, this innovative approach that the government has taken is supporting the NGOs. One, it is community-led. Second, the lessons learned and the best practices are scaled up. So in a way, you're trying to maximize the impact with the additional funding that you're able to make. So I would say this is maybe the best model, and you should really maybe consider further upscaling it, because climate change is real and it's here. And so we need to address it, and I think John mentioned about the huge gap that we have. So this innovative funding mechanism maximizes the impact. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe I can just add the experience that we had, because we are an NGO that receive funding from the ODA, from the Luxembourgish government as well, but this funding coming from this additionality, so this fund is coming from the other ministry, is crucial to taste and to provide it, to have piloting projects with a specific and exclusive focus on climate adaptation. And then we can scale up with the funding of ODA and spread the concept of climate adaptation in some projects, in other project that we have with that we funded with the ODA funding. So it's a sort of additionality with a specific focus of climate adaptation that then can inspire other ODA general programs.
So you have a lot of very successful activities, and you have a lot of plans for scaling up your work, and you also have success in that. But I still think that there could be some obstacles that you sort of encounter, and you might, explain a little about these obstacles and how you try to come around them.
Maybe in terms of the challenges or obstacles, I think number one, any climate change project takes time. So you cannot do a 3-year project. So I think the time periods tend to be longer because you are taking a more community-based kind of an approach. The second challenge is that communities are used to monocropping, communities are used to certain practices that, in a way, go against adaptation. So for that kind of a behavior change communication, for the communities to take ownership, take responsibility, take accountability, and through these farmer producer organizations or women self-help groups, it takes more time. So I think what we realized, that's one of the reasons why the current project we have is going into phase 2. So we are talking about 3 + 4, 7 years, for you to see the results, the impact, and then look at the mainstreaming and scaling up. Thank you.
So it requires a lot of patience to do adaptation activities. And what about then when you try to scale up and try to get your local authorities involved and so on? Does that only require patience, or do you also use other tools to sort of make your local authorities sort of stepping up?
Okay, thank you. I want to first say that, you know, if you are really, really going into communities, understanding their needs very clearly, listening to what they say and what they don't say, both, and finding solutions together. But finding solutions together, we mustn't also be led astray, thinking all the solutions will come from them. Because technology is something they're not aware of, possibilities are something they're not aware of. So there are things which you bring to the table, which they bring onto the table, and together on a respectful platform, you create the project. Now, in a project like that, it's rare that resistance comes from the community or challenges are within the community, because then hopefully you are on the right track of the implementation. Then comes the stories. If you're really working with climate impacted communities, they are usually quite far away from the mainstream government available services. Okay? So if you do something successfully, everybody wants to be part of that success, even the government. Okay? They want to be part of that success. They recognize that success. Of course, you do meet with resistance, but usually, I would say, they want to be part of it. So, I think one can go in the local government especially has been. The problem comes because climate change is not as yet integrated, even in a country like Bangladesh, where it is so integrated because it's live. Every day we see the impacts. But even then, it's not as yet integrated into the policies of the government. For example, we do not have different policies for the people of the chores. We do not have different policies for the people who are migrating along the coastal belt, or the people of the howers, which is another very complex situation. So I think this needs to be done. So scaling up for an individual organization can only be done if your project is very simple, easy, seen, acceptable by the people. But at the end of the day, it needs to be scaled up by the government. So
that is perhaps an extra added value for you as your government, that, I mean, out from these projects, you get a lot of energy into how to scale up solutions and put pressure on state authorities, local governments, and so on. Anyway, I think it's about time that we open up for questions from the floor. And yeah, I wonder if somebody has a question.
Actually, it's not already a question. It's just to hijack this session, because you see on the slide there, together Le Cercle from Luxembourg with all the NGOs is officially launching today in this event the voicesforclimate.lu website, which is showcasing and gathering all the projects that have been implementing thanks to this funding from the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Biodiversity of Luxembourg. This website has been funded by the ministry, implemented by Le Cercle, and it will showcase all these projects that are really making the impact. And so we invite you all to visit it, and all the NGOs from Luxembourg that are watching us, because there are almost more than 40 people watching us online, so a hi to everyone in Luxembourg. So please do visit this website, provide your project to Le Cercle, and they will be shown and disclosed there. So it's a good way to also advocate for the people in the field, and also to advocate for this funding mechanism.
Thanks. I really think it's very important that your experiences, they reach a wider audience, and that could be one of the tools, because it really seems that you found a way of reaching many people by concrete activities and solutions that are sort of helpful for a much broader part of the population. But anyway, before we end, I think if somebody has a question in the audience, please show your hand. Do you have a question?
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to thank all of you for making this happening. And I'm working in the field with the ground, like in the ground with the communities. So my experience is like that, whatever we are doing, the success we see, we stop the migration, like from the migratory communities, like where they are forced to migrate. So we are even, in a sense, successful to stopping this line. So last over 20 years, Friendship has been working over there. And as I was involved, I saw many people's sufferings. And right now, there are a lot of changes. And I think it drops significantly wherever we are implementing the projects. So I would say that people are appreciating. And definitely, we are doing in the field our part, and you are doing your part. And I really congratulate and thank you very much for connecting us, for connecting from Luxembourg to in the field. So thank you very much.
Maybe you should explain from where you are. Maybe you should explain from where you are in your project.
Okay. It's okay. Explaining what?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not wanting to take over, but I want to introduce our two young girls from the Chores. Come. This is Rosina and Beauty, who are not climate activists, but they are from the field and they are from an island. Rosina losing her home, 13 times, 14 times annually. And so they are with the Friendship Schools, and they are just bringing voices to the COP. And we've had a lot of interest because they are not activists. They are just reality. You know what is happening. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for bringing in the reality. But I think actually we've got quite some pictures and movies from the reality out there, and we've seen that the solutions you provide are so effective and helpful. But it's about time to finish this side event, but I wonder if each of us has a few final words, and I think we take it from this end so that the government can sort of speak at the end.
No, for myself, I would really like to thank the Luxembourg government very much in the way that they work and in our partnerships over the last 17, 18 years. I think the funding really brings something very strong, and please continue. And one thing you can do is perhaps the success of the money you give should be shared by other governments also, with other governments also. The impact, the ratio of money you're giving, and actually the impact that's happening. This doesn't happen with others so much.
Thank you. And I think that I want to stick with a word, partnership. And I think it's in general the word that has been used during these days and is so important when we work on a bottom-up approach with the patients and involving the partner with which we share the common objective. And so we can take longer than expected, longer than an investor, common investor, I'm in the financial sector, so a common investor would ask, and we can remunerate less. We can be financially patient. I don't know if it is a combination of words that is working, but this is the core of a partnership with this kind of results that we can have in adaptation programs.
Yeah, thank you very much. Enjoyed being part of the panel. So I have two suggestions in terms of way forward. Number one, I'm glad you have a website now for climate action. But it will be nice if we can even come up with a compendium of success stories or case studies or best practices. The second is maybe, these organizations that are involved in climate action come together for sharing and learning and look at collectively how they can take up policy advocacy. As far as India is concerned, I think we are a large country. So whatever we do with the funding from AEI and Luxembourg, with the Luxembourg ministry, we are able to not only disseminate best practices, but we are also able to mainstream some of these innovations and ideas with the government, and that really is having a multiplier effect. So I would say do more, and maybe push with the other governments to fund community level initiatives for climate change, because only communities can practice adaptation. I don't think governments can do on their own. It has to be community based, community led, and community owned initiatives. Then the success and the impact will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think do more. That's a word also for this COP here, because we talk about the adaptation, doubling, and the goal. But in fact, even if we double, it doesn't mean that it is sufficient. We need more than that. So do more. It's also something that will also motivate us here as negotiators also to push for adaptation. And I think your interventions proves that we are doing it's good. And sometimes as civil servants, we are asking ourselves, we're doing also other projects where we are spending international climate finance funding. And sometimes we're not always convinced that the impact is the best. We always, we think that maybe there is something, we're not only civil servants, we're also fathers, brothers, sisters, so we are thinking of people on the ground. But when you prove that our money is very spent in the best way, so that's really motivating us to make this improvement that you give us, and that we will continue to spend more money, and that maybe, as Runa said, we are not selling this as a solution to others. Maybe we should communicate more, and maybe in future, also in our marketing strategy and outreach and communication, we can maybe show more examples. And of course, we work together in cooperation, with close cooperation with our colleagues from cooperation and development. So there are also synergies, and there are also improvements that we need to make in future. And I think you're helping us to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we actually should give a big hand to the government of Luxembourg. I think we should give a big hand to the government of Luxembourg. I don't think I've met a group of NGOs so happy with their government as you are, actually. It's very seldom that you see that kind of thing. Anyway, one additional thing I would like to add is that I think it's so important that you sort of have a strategy to upscale this, and to convince your partners in the EU that they must do similar things, and they must take adaptation finance, the need for adaptation finance, more seriously than they do. I mean, we as NGOs, we need allies among governments to push for this, because unfortunately we see that many European governments, they find all kind of bad excuses for not supporting adaptation as they should and as they have committed to. And it just doesn't work in the world. We need all, to use our strength and to try to work on this and get to a much higher level of adaptation finance in the coming years.